And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Monday, March 25th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. I'm the co-host along with my son, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear three hours of unbiased and uncensored news and analysis information you need to know in these very perilous times. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. We're heard around the world via internet, via the Blog Talk Radio platform on the internet. And we want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. Our home base, of course, is HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. And we are also simulcast in high-def video and audio on via the Christians United Broadcasting Network at Homeland Security US, the number 1.tk. Joe, welcome to the program tonight.
Glad to be here. It's been a very eventful weekend as far as news and disinformation is concerned. And we had several conversations throughout the weekend where I'm calling you saying, hey, did you hear this? Did you see this? One primarily being the rumors of Assad being assassinated, which we can still neither really confirm or deny because we haven't seen them and that nobody's produced them that I know of. But from all we can tell, it's a rumor, or it's a rumor for now.
Well, I wonder how many people have been kept chasing their tails, chasing after this rumor, reporting the rumor as fact or reporting the rumor as a rumor. To what end? To what end? And frankly, it's looking at this based on the power structure, it really wouldn't matter. It matters in the larger sense, in the larger scheme of things, but at this point, it really doesn't matter. It would be like a weekend at Bernie's scenario with Assad and Russia and Putin. That's with respect to that. Now, folks, if you noticed during the last several days, there was talk of a chemical incident, of course, in Syria. It was a chlorine-based type of a bomb, thick swimming pool material, chlorine. That's what we saw happen. Nothing of significance. But what this is being done, and really people have got to understand what the mindset here is. This is to put the public, the mind of the general public, the minds of people into that area of thought of chemical weapons in Syria. The Syrian anti-Assad rebels, backed by the United States, and even more importantly, folks, understand this, France, but to a larger extent, Great Britain. The anti-Assad rebels have control, or are attempting to have complete control over chemical weapons. False flag operations set off in Syria to make it look like Assad is gassing or setting off chemical weapons. Of course, this would bring NATO, and it would involve NATO and involve the United States. This is the plan. And I'm glad to see a lot of this is transparent, because the more we talk about this, the greater the exposure. Perhaps we're changing the agenda just a tad. At the very least, I saw Drudge reporting this about the rebels having the weapons, as opposed to Assad having set off a chemical weapon. But watch over the next 30 days some type of, dare I say it, a blood sacrifice somewhere, perhaps in Syria, that will set off a chain of events that will usher us into or closer to a third world war scenario. Remember, World War III is going to start in this area, and most likely with Syria, as we said. The architect of the Syrian opposition against Assad is Barack Hussein Obama, the United States State Department, and everything that Obama is doing with the Muslim Brotherhood. Did you see, Joe? Did you see that photograph of Assad or of Obama with Abbas underneath the banner of Yasser Arafat?
No, but I did hear somebody, I think it was Sean Hannity, comment on the fact that when he was speaking at Georgetown University that he wanted to cover up the cross and the religious symbols in the room. He did cover the cross and other religious symbols in the room, but yet he was happy to stand under that. And people have to really understand the significance of this. You know, Mubarak, back in 2009, when he spoke at the University of Cairo, Mubarak advised Obama not to invite the Muslim Brotherhood to that speech, not to acknowledge them, not to advise them, because to do so would be to empower them. And Mubarak knew the potential for radicalization, or knew how radical they are, and pleaded with them, saying, don't do what you are about to do. It will ignite the Middle East. And look what happened. Of course, Mubarak, he's out. The Middle East is on fire. And that's a dirty little secret. It remains on fire. And now look what we have. Now we've got this cozy relationship. Not we, but the Obama regime has this cozy relationship with the Muslim Brotherhood. And by the way, don't forget too, Obama is certainly responsible for this, but don't forget the run-up to this with George Bush and his good friend and still relevant individual within the GOP or within the conservative circles. I shouldn't say GOP, but within the conservative circles, Grover Norquist, who really set the stage and allowed Obama to come into office and to do what he's doing. I mean, the Islamic agenda under Bush was actually set by Grover Norquist. The Islamic infiltration to be used as the moving and guiding force for global governance was Grover Norquist, among others. But so what we're seeing right now is a result of George W. Bush, his actions, as well as obviously Bill Clinton's and the senior Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush. And you could take this all the way back to Jimmy Carter. So this has been a long process that we're looking at. What we're seeing right now is kind of the fourth quarter of a football game, or the in-game scenario. Folks, this is getting very, very. I hope people understand how close we are coming now to a series of events that will take place that will start the conflagration in the Middle East. Now, both domestically and in the Middle East, economically and on the war front, however, as it was explained to me, there is kind of a long burn time here on this fuse. Although we don't exactly know when things will happen, it seems like we do have kind of a longer burn time on the fuse than others are clamoring. It's not going to happen overnight necessarily. It could, and it might, but it does not necessarily have to. I don't want to contradict myself or sounding like I'm being contradictory at all. What I'm saying is it's a series of plans that are pliable, that can be moved and fixed and reset as conditions warrant. The objective remains the same, and that's the ultimate global domination, using the Islamic political system and religious system as the driver of this action that's taking place. But don't forget, folks, too, it's the economic system that's really going to be biting people here domestically, and the economic system is going to be the cause for
based on everything I've been able to determine, cause for the social unrest, combined with other factors that will be either exacerbated or made up. False flag operations, along with other factors that will be exacerbated, such as racial tensions. I mean, there's just a whole slew of things. Remember, there's no single point failure that these people have. These people have plan after plan after plan and backup plan, and the backups for their backups, and everything is going at the speed of light in terms of but everything's just going quickly. But there are so many backup plans to what they've got going that any one person, for example, if we were to lay out all of the backup plans that we could see, all the other contingency plans, we would sound like absolute nutcases. But that's what we're facing. That's what we're faced with. And by the way, before I turn this back over to Joe, I just want to say this. It's interesting because this goes back to something that we've talked about before. This even goes back to the Obama eligibility issue. And how and people might say, well, that's a done deal, that's been settled. Well, no, it was never settled. We really don't know the background of Barack Hussein Obama with clarity. We don't know who this man is. We don't even know his real name. And for people to say that we do, or this has been authenticated or proven, they are mistaken. I came across a piece of information this weekend, or a bit of news, shall I say, this weekend from, it's not new news, it was back in 2011, and Adobe, a gentleman working for Adobe, had made a comment to Fox News and saying, well, you know what, he made a statement about the layering effect, and ultimately what Fox News did was they cherry-picked certain comments and headlined the article by saying that this man authenticated the document when in fact he never did. He tried to correct Fox News. They would have nothing to do with that, nothing to do with the corrections. So he himself put up a posting on his personal blog. The who's and whys and whats and wherefores are not really important. But the reason I'm mentioning this is that this is how this false official story really took hold. With this, the bottom line, the lie is bigger, folks, than you can imagine. We are being lied to at every turn, and we talk about this all the time. The lie is so big, and we are so accustomed to accepting this lie that the history itself has been butchered. We are believing, we are even going back into the early 20th century with the creation of the Fed, and I'll even mention this once again because I think this is important, with the sinking of the Titanic, with the people on board, Guggenheim and Strauss and others who oppose the Federal Reserve. We're being fed false information about this. Into the Eisenhower years and the Kennedy, and then of course Kennedy assassination, all of these things, lies at every level, at every generation, and the lies just keep going and going. And today, well, where are we at today? We are so far into this lie, into these series of lies, that is so difficult to discern the truth. And that's why when we do a program, and we do these programs, the truth lies in looking at everything we see through the Word of God. And if we don't filter out what we see through the Bible, for example, boy, would we be lost. So I got kind of off on a tangent there from the real news.
We do have lots of news on Syria, on the economy, and this first, though, U.S. unblocks $500 million in aid for Palestinians. The State Department spokeswoman Nalan says aid money frozen by Congress for months has been freed up as the Palestinian Authority faces the worst economic crisis in years. The U.S. has quietly unblocked almost $500 million to the Palestinian Authority, which had been frozen by Congress for months, a top U.S. official said Friday. The news that the funds had finally been freed up came after U.S. President Obama met top Israeli and Palestinian leaders in a landmark visit to Israel and the West Bank earlier this week. The Obama administration also notified Congress in February that it was seeking a further $200 million to fund the U.S. Agency for International Development Programs for the Palestinians. The sum compromises some $195 million in aid allocated under 2012 budget, $100 million earmarked especially for narcotics control. The second sum of $200 million unblocked and available to the Palestinian Authority will come under the budget of 2013. And they say that the Palestinian Authority is facing the worst economic crisis in years. And it goes on to say that Congress froze the U.S. administration's request for funds, and Israel, which strongly opposed the move, said it was suspending the monthly transfers of the tax and tariff revenue it collects on behalf of the Palestinian Authority. Earlier this month, in a report by the Palestinian Authority, it urged the world to step up financial aid and press Israel to allow economic development, warning of a political collapse due to the Israeli strangulation. Obama met Abbas in Ramallah, in the West Bank, Thursday, as part of his visit to Israel and the Palestinian territories, accompanied by Secretary of State John Kerry. John Kerry has pushed for the funds to be released since taking up his position on the 1st of February. Also, in other news with Syria, going back to Syria, we have a lot of news there. One, it's been confirmed that the U.S. has been giving weapons to Syria, tons of weapons, I might say, and also the CIA aids.
Literally, by the way, tons of weapons. I think 30 to 40 million tons of weapons.
The CIA reportedly has a hand in the clandestine supply of arms to Syrian rebels by Gulf states. At least 3,500 tons have been delivered, some ending up on the black market, with the Turkish government an active player, a media report says. Now, where did we hear that before? This stemming back to the Benghazi situation.
Exactly. No, you're right to point that out.
And how many people have pointed that out? The connection between Turkey and Syria, and the connection between Benghazi and Turkey. How many people know who Ambassador Stevens was meeting with that afternoon?
Well, we do, and of course we've talked about this on our show. And we I should point this out. We're picking up new listeners all of the time, and just for the new listeners, folks, I am compiling a kind of a guidebook for Benghazi, and it'll be made accessible on our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com, tomorrow. I can guarantee you that. I'm just what I've done is just indexed all of the Benghazi files into one document, and you can read you'll be able to read. It's probably around 8,000 words. It's a compendium of the articles, but it's important because it gives you a blow-by-blow description of the agenda, the plan, what happened, and why it happened. And the why it happened is really important because and the cover-up, too. The cover-up leads us directly back to the head of the CIA, current head of the CIA, Mr. John O. Brennan.
It goes on here, while the help from the CIA and Arab governments, as well as Turkey, have sharply increased their military aid to Syria's rebel fighters, a.k.a. al-Qaeda, in recent months, expanding a secret airlift of arms and air traffic. Interviews with officials in several countries and the accounts of rebel commanders back this up. Now, the airlift began on a small scale in early 2012 and continued intermittently throughout last fall, expanded into a steady and much heavier flow late last year. The data shows it has grown to include more than 160 military cargo flights from Jordan, Saudi, Qatar, military-style cargo planes landing in airports in, let me see if I can pronounce this right, Ankara?
Ankara, yeah. Ankara. That's right. You got it.
Esenboga.
You got it.
To a lesser degree, other Turkish and Jordanian airports. It goes on to say the New York Times piece attempts to spin America's role in arming militants in Syria. The Times,
New York Times. Forget the
continues stating by saying this: the American government became involved, and former American officials said, in part because there was a sense that other states would arm the rebels anyhow. The CIA role in facilitating the shipments, he said, gave the United States a degree of influence over the process, including trying to steer weapons away from Islamist groups and persuading donors to withhold portable anti-aircraft missiles that might be used in future terrorist attacks on civilian aircrafts. This is categorically false.
Exactly. And folks, here is the big thing about this. And this, no, few are talking about this. Okay, John Kerry, Secretary of State. I got to reach for the mailbox, when I say this. Folks, you don't know what a mistake this is. Just as Brennan for the CIA, what a mistake this is or how bad this is for the American people. But see, Obama put these nominations in there, and the Congress approved them. If this doesn't, ladies and gentlemen, if this doesn't tell you that we are living under a one-party system, that there is no hope, understand this, there is no hope between Republicans and Democrats. Don't put your hope. If you think for a moment that the Republicans are going to be the saviors, it's not going to happen because...
And let me translate that further.
Okay.
The whole American political system and the laws that we once were under are gone. There is no bringing them back. No voting booth will change it. No change in leadership will fix it. No solution brought on by man will fix the problem facing not only this nation but this world.
Exactly. And the real salvation or the real savior of this is getting close to God, the spiritual aspect of this. But getting back to Syria just for a moment here, what you were saying, Joe, right on the money. Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they've been sending arms to Syrian rebels for the past couple of years. Understand that for the new listeners, the United States is acting as the military might for Saudi Arabia. We are doing the work, the heavy lifting for Saudi Arabia. We also have to remember too, and this is in the Benghazi series, that don't forget Valerie Jarrett was heavily involved in the planning of certain things during the back in October, around October. Valerie Jarrett was in Qatar meeting with some Iranians, but that does have, I kind of got ahead of myself there. Just keep that in the back of your mind for right this minute. But what America is doing here, America is, at this particular point in time, is sending, quote, humanitarian and non-lethal aid to the Free Syrian Army. This is what the State Department is saying. But they're providing training for the anti-Assad terrorists across the border in Jordan, okay? This is spilling over into attacking Israel, or attacks on Israel. The blowback is against Israel, but there's also going to be a blowback here in the United States when this whole thing lights up in the Middle East. So not only do we have to be concerned with the economic issues that are coming our way, this economic tsunami that's coming our way, we also have to be concerned with the blowback from the Middle East that we created, much like we created in the run-up to the 93 and even 93 World Trade Center bombing and even the even 9/11. So when I say we, I'm talking about this regime, and even to a lesser extent, but still a very important role, the previous administration under George W. Bush, although that was not as in full swing as it is today. Bush has blood on his hands. I'm sorry to say it. I got to tell you,
I'm not sorry to say it, and I haven't been before. Clinton, Bush 1, Bush 2. I mean, all these presidents, especially the latter ones. You look at Bush and 1 in the Panama drug running operations they conducted. Bill Clinton was involved in that also. Bush 2 with PNAC, nation building. Continuing with the Dick Cheneys and PNAC and the neocons to continue to expand for more into the Middle East, more into Africa, expanding their partnership with Saudi Arabia and control of these regions. It is not only nation overthrowing and rebuilding governments we are seeing strategic chess places being put into place for when things are ready to happen and go hot. And when I say things, I mean a world war. Will there be a World War III, or is it all just hype, a distraction? Will there be an economic collapse, or is it all a distraction? These are things and questions I've been asking myself over the weekend, but regardless of if they're a distraction or if they are something that we need to watch for, I would say it's a bit of both. All these things are of this world. They do not help us with our salvation. They do not help us grow.
I'm going to disagree with you on this, though. No. I have to disagree with you on this. None of this is a distraction. What we're talking about is not a distraction. World War III, that would be the ultimate distraction. Talk about a distraction in the Third World War. Yeah, that's more than I would say. That's a little more than a distraction.
Well, it's a distraction. At the same time, it's serving a purpose. Why is the New World Order doing what they're doing? What is moving them to do it? Now, follow my logic here.
Okay.
These people want to, in their own words, stated publicly, even maybe for reasons that serve their agenda or not, exterminate most of the people on the earth and make themselves live forever. Now, these people are killers by nature. So after they kill all the useless eaters, as they dub us, from across the world, there's not going to be people left to kill except themselves, right? If we're looking at this just from what they plan and the outcomes they see from their plans, not from anything else we know. Through the Agenda 21 plan, they just want to exterminate people, have all the land, money, and resources for themselves.
Okay.
Have the ability for life extension and possibly to have their physical bodies live forever on this earth. Right?
If folks pull up a chair to the virtual table here and we'll just kind of eavesdrop on this conversation as we work through this process of I believe we're talking here about the Illuminati, the global elite, what their plans are. Right?
About what's important, what's not important. What we see is everything we see in the news is part of the agenda of the New World Order.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Yes, I agree.
So just let's say tomorrow their plan is implemented and it's finished. They say everybody that they want gone is gone. 95% of the population, whatever it is.
Okay.
There's nobody left to kill except their own buddies and elitists. They won't stop killing each other until there's one person left or one family left.
Why are you saying that?
Well, because
why would you say that?
It would be the evolution of things. What are they doing this for? And I'm saying this for a reason, because it makes no sense unless you bring in what the Bible says about history, about what's going to happen, about the agenda of Satan trying to bring himself to be enthroned like God, like the Most High, and the deceptions. None of it makes sense without that, because they have all the power in the world. They have the ability to do whatever they want. There's not too many people on Earth. They could feed everybody in the world 10 times over every single day, house them 10 times over every single day, and still be so rich they couldn't spend the money throughout generations of their family.
Correct.
So why? If they already have everything,
okay,
what's the reasoning?
They're buying the future. And the reasoning lies to those who can understand and really get it, to those who really can kind of really wrap their heads around this, is contained in the article on HomelandSecurityUS.com. Life as an Investigator is like a box of chocolates. It's a long read, folks. You're going to have to read it, print it out, read it twice, read it 3 times, read it 4 times, but you'll have to really try to understand it. Here's the deal: the elite, and this is as I understand it. So there are many people out there with a better understanding who could, I'm sure, articulate this much better than I can. I'm coming at this, ladies and gentlemen, from the I spent 30 years almost as an investigator. So I'm looking at this because I want to know, okay, who, what, when, where, why, how. I want the motives. I want the details. I want everything. I want the details. You give me the details. Some say, well, you know what? They don't matter. It doesn't matter how we got here. It's just it matters that we're here and we have to be saved. I understand that. But with the knowledge of history comes an understanding of the present in anticipation of the future. Joe, do you agree with that? Just nod. Just shake your head, yes.
To a point.
Okay. Look, some people, okay, let's just say this. And once again, folks, you're kind of eavesdropping, if you will, on a family conversation between a father and son. Who's going to be 30, by the way, at the end of the week? I can't believe it. But anyway, so pull up a chair and just kind of listen in on this. All right. What's our objective here? And some people who have cable have seen the series on the History Channel, The Bible. It's one of the...
A monk keeps talking about this, the Bible series.
All right, right. I've got some issues with that, but you know what I like? I like the fact that people are talking about the Bible. But that's a topic for another show. Okay. But anyway, what are we supposed to be doing here as Christians? Why are we living today?
I would approach it from why are we even here in the first place? How and why are we here in the first place? Let's start there.
Well, wow. I wonder how many parents remember when, as a parent, your child says, "Gee, Mom," or "Gee, Dad, why was I born?" I mean, that's kind of like that question. It's my belief that we are here at the pleasure of God. Okay, now is that? I don't want to sound trite, but let's, without getting into material discussion.
Look at this from, we're not talking about Christians here. We're talking about, let's just say, a normal working American who doesn't believe, the traditions in the Bible, weren't taught to them. They might have been, the first generation from their family where the Bible wasn't important and religion wasn't important, because we see this generation is so far away from anything spiritual, more than any generation we've ever seen.
Oh,
historically, ever. So a person who wasn't brought up with any religious views, doesn't believe in God, isn't a bad person, but walking down the street, going to work every day, living his life. His approach, why is he here? What does he work for? What does he right?
Wow. Okay, we're going down.
You go from that level. You have a lot. You have probably 50% of America, at least, either thinks that they're here because of some cosmic, happening by coincidence. The Big Bang Theory. It was all, basically, as I have heard it from some Christian pastor on a radio sermon I was listening to years ago. Saying the world was created by accident and the universe by accident is like saying a tornado could go through a junkyard and when it's gone have a fleet of 767 jets that work sitting there.
Right. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that creation, our presence here, is by accident. It's certainly, to me, I cannot. There's just no way that if you study biology and if you study, I'll just leave it at that. If you just study that, there's just no way that you could even relate, we'll say something like evolution to our life as it is right now. Now, there are people that attempt to do so, but okay. But to answer, let's draw this back into something a little bit more manageable for the show tonight here. Let me just say this, all right? The very moment that we first register the presence, we'll say, of our parents, we're being shown the way that life is supposed to be, or the way that life apparently is, for example. Through no fault of ours or theirs, our parents begin the programming process as their views of life, shaped by their own experiences, their education, whatever, their employment, and even their observation of the media, they are imposed upon us. Now, formal education through schools and universities continues this systematic indoctrination. This is what I believe, where the correct views and interpretations of science and history and such result in basically, good grades and exam passes. You pass and you're able to get on in life. Now, alternative views, and this is where we're at today, and the rejection of establishment education lead to lesser jobs, for example. All right, so if you reject, let's just say, and I know I'm kind of straying here, but I'll bring it back. If you reject, for example, the accepted views of life, alternative views, the establishment. When I say establishment, I'm not talking about the 60s stuff. I'm talking about the basic views of how life is when you look out the window and see things, cars driving on the road. If you don't accept that, then you are kind of labeled a conspiracy kook nut. You're seeing things wrong, and you really need mental health counseling. See, our understanding of the world and current affairs, it's filtered all through the mass media. It's interpreted and regurgitated, and we are pounded by the journalists and these so-called experts on television and on the radio and in the newspaper. And their views, and this is important, see, their views become our views only because we are not offered, or we hadn't been offered, any alternatives. So to overcome the daily problems within society, what do we do? For example, well, we turn to our parents, or we turn to, in most cases, if we've got a problem, we'll go to the people we so-called elected, whether it's on a local level or a national level. But see, we give our decision-making abilities to just a select group of people who are increasingly remote and untouchable. Now, why did I say all of this? Because our life experience is determined by what we see around us, and what we experience around us, and what we're told it is. We're part of this global machine of consumerism led by Western multinational corporations and banks, and every other consideration is less than that. So those in the positions of influence, the politicians, the bankers, the corporate executives, the media people, well, they have been, according to their own definition, successful within the system. So they've got an interest in maintaining what we see, the status quo, what we believe is to be true, the matrix, if you will. It's up to them to say that this is the way things work. So this framework, this very false framework, shapes every aspect of our life, whether it's education, the media, healthcare, cultural, sporting events, religion. It doesn't matter. Everything. Now, why did I say all that? Well, the vast majority of the world's population are sheep, just following the herd. You ask, well, what's our purpose? Well, no one really asks that question, do they? But whenever there is introspection, where do they turn? They turn to, well, do they turn to the Bible? No, they usually turn to the media. They turn to others, supposedly the learned elders, the people, whether they're in the churches or schools, universities. But where do these people get their worldview from? Of course, it's from the same system that we are attempting to understand and even to an extent get out of. When we are shown, for example, if we've got a problem or a question, if we have got a question, any old answer to anything that, well, we are provided answers that are not thought out answers. We're provided answers that have been passed on through time and reinforced by the very people I was talking about. So like sheep, we follow blindly and without question the herd. We just fit right in with the herd. We're led through the gates of authority. Exactly. So now, just think about this. This framework has not been constructed by accident. It's not by chance. It's a deliberate policy that's been implemented over time that continues, and it becomes even more sinister with every passing day. So the very questions that you're asking and the very questions that others are asking, the answers that are provided have been stock answers. Since biblical times, the esoteric knowledge outlined in the Bible, for example, it's been largely withheld from the majority of people throughout the world. Now, this is where it gets a little bit important and convoluted at the same time. The people in power, the global elitists, now trust me and follow me on this one, they believe, and I was really praying about this before the show and thinking if I should even mention this. There is a belief system of this Atlantean knowledge that predates the Bible. Now think about that for a moment. The people in power today, when I say in power, I'm talking about the global elite. I'm talking about maybe the 3,000 people that run the entire planet, if it's that many. They believe that they are a remnant of this Atlantean pre-Adamic civilization. Now, it doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen, what you believe. If you think that's kooky, it doesn't matter if you think it's kooky or not. It matters what they believe, because belief is the driver of action. So to answer your question, Joe, they're acting on their belief that they are the descendants of these fallen angels, which they consider gods. And now we're getting into this Illuminati Matrix-style mentality here. But it's important to acknowledge that.
It's not even the Illuminati. I mean, we're talking about biblical. This is what is written in the Bible, that about where evil was spawned from, how it came upon the earth and became part of mankind, and how these people who are evil or people on earth continue to be influenced by or choose to follow and accept the evil and be part of the evil to the extent that they carry it out.
Well,
now,
yes. Yeah,
there's no practical reason. And I mean, I was thinking this through my head all weekend. If the Bible wasn't true, if it was a complete fairy tale, as some people like to call it, or a made up myth, or as what Lenin put it, it is a Yes, an opiate of the masses. You're muted.
Yeah.
Basically, that it is a crutch for weak people. If that was the case, A, why is the New World Order and their goals set on demonizing Christians? Why is there so many Christians persecuted? I mean, all across the world, we have all these nonviolent people who are Christians who want to live in peace, who do nothing but, try to be self-sustainable in their villages that are overruled by these militants in their country. No matter what part of the world you're from, there's regions, except right now the USA, but that's not to be too far out. But it's the attack of innocence, always. That attack of innocence, that constant attack of innocence, like we say about Israel, why would the whole world hate and attack this one little piece of land? Well, why would all these people, no matter if their background religion is political ideologies or communism or, not socialism or Americanism, whatever, in their religions being atheist, why are atheists killing Christians if the Christians aren't doing anything to the atheists?
Okay, all right.
Why are they?
Yeah, I understand. I don't mean to interrupt, because you can go on with why, and I get that. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is probably, to me, one of the most important discussions anyone could have about this, because we're touching the third rail. Joe, you are grabbing the third rail, man, with both hands. And so am I. And so is every listener, by listening to this and by talking about this and by addressing this, because this is the third rail. This is the reason. You see, we can look at the news and what's going on and try to make sense of it from a lay perspective, or from a non-Christian perspective, or from a non-biblical perspective. But it's the biblical perspective and the Christian perspective that adds that dimension, the dimensionality to what we're talking about. Because the very people who, for example, start the wars, who move the chess pieces, are doing so from a position of their perceived superiority over the masses. They believe that they are the rulers or descendants of the rulers of the past. And a lot of people don't get that. But they're buying the future. They're looking at us as worker ants, as nothing more than cattle, as the uninitiated, the unwashed masses. And this is really at the core of the globalists. This is what drives the globalists and the people, whether it be the people in the UK or the US. This is what drives them. This perception of deserved superiority because of this generational inheritance. And this would explain too, Joe, why, and listeners, why there's such interbreeding among the Illuminati, or among the families like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, because they want to keep their bloodline pure, because they know. I mean, this is the ultimate. We can't even have seriously, folks. We could not have a discussion about the Bible without really acknowledging this what we're talking about right now. If you really want to know, I mean, this is my belief. The Bible this is what the Bible is based on. When I say based on, this is what's involved in the Bible, is this Luciferian element versus the good element, the seed of Adam, and the promise of our salvation, versus the disruptors and destructors. At least that's how I mean, this is how it works out in my mind. And maybe it's not, or maybe I didn't articulate it properly. But that's so. You ask, well, why? Why after World War I were the nations of Europe and the Middle East split along arbitrary lines rather than tribal lines? When they knew, the very architects of those borders knew that by separating the nations in that fashion, it would lead to a Second World War. And after the Second World War, virtually the same thing. They did the same thing, knowing that, of course, it would lead to yet another war or continuing or perpetual conflicts. Why? Well, because of the plans, the end game plans.
Yeah, are we just dumb and gullible to continue to let history repeat itself over and over as a society? That
no, we're not dumb and gullible.
Okay.
We're
manipulated.
We're tradition. Yes, manipulated.
Okay. And
so yeah, and that's why people listen, for example, or listen to this show or other shows like this, because they know something. See, when you know something's wrong, and you got this feeling that something's not right, and you can't get, well, what's up with this? Well, we have to look at these. We have to tune in to shows like this. I know, and hopefully this is a light for some people. This is a Luciferian versus God situation, and the people that are the real people, the flesh and blood people, the mortal people, the leaders, the global elite, the people that we can poke in the eye and say, you're a bad person, or your actions are bad or whatever. I guess what I'm just saying is the mortal human flesh and blood people. This is the perception of the Atlantean, or even pre-Adamic, and I know that pre-Adamic, that phrase really sets people on fire and says, "Oh, that's it doesn't." Once again, it doesn't matter what we believe; it matters what they believe. They believe they're entitled to this earth. They believe they are ensuring the future. And if you really want to get deep and dark into this too, for example, remember the comparison to Obama and the pharaohs of Egypt. There are people like Obama. I'm not saying Obama himself, but people like Obama who believe that they've actually can be after they die, because consciousness, of course, resides outside the body. They can actually become pharaohs. But that's kind of going off on a tangent. But the bottom line is this: hang on, just let me just it is this. It's this self-deserving, this perpetuation of this system, this thought process by these individuals, by these people who believe that they are superior to God's people, that they are not of God's people, but above God's people, when in fact it's not. They are not. They believe that they are descendants of a higher God than our God, when in fact it's not. And maybe that's kind of an oversimplistic thing, but go ahead.
From Ignatius Salone, he wrote a book, Bread and Wine. It describes the all-pervading tentacles of terror. This is a clip or a quote out of the book talking about secret police and informants and pretty much a fascist police state, totalitarian system. It talks about the informants are everywhere. They are legion, whether they work for a miserable compensation or whether their only incentive is the hope of advancement in their careers. This state of affairs, which is the having informants in every section of every big factory, bank, major office, and level of society and government. So having these informants, this state of affairs spreads suspicion and distrust throughout all classes of the population. On this degradation of a man into a frightened animal who quivers with fear and hates his neighbor in his fear and watches him, betrays him, and sells him, and lives in fear of discovery. The dictatorship can be based. The real organization on which the system is based is the secret manipulation of fear. That's from Bread and Wine, written by Ignatius Salone.
I got to tell you something. I believe that to be the case. Fear is a great motivator. Fear is a great. When I say great motivator, I'm not ascribing greatness to it. I'm just saying it's something that does motivate people. After all, you listen to programs like this, and you become concerned over how things are playing out. It does create. Hopefully, we don't create or perpetuate fear, but awareness. But when it does turn into fear, that's a bad thing. Okay, because we have the only way to combat fear, of course, is through our spiritual beliefs, through the Bible, through belief in God, as well as knowledge. But you're correct.
I'm coming to learn that as much as people do love the Lord, some of them still have fear in them, whether they will admit it or subconscious. And to a certain degree, I'm one of those people. And I always wonder, if certain things happen, how will I react? These are questions we got to ask ourselves. I mean, we're told in the Bible that we will.
But wait, let me just
suffering, a great deal of suffering. Christians will.
Let me just interject one thing here. We're not talking about the basic fear that is a normal, healthy fear. For example,
manipulated fear versus fear of God are two separate things.
Yeah, right. We're not talking about the fear of. To be human, when you're a human being, it's normal to have fear of, let's say, getting hit by a bus, especially if you're standing in the middle of the interstate, during Long Island Expressway at 3 in the afternoon. Okay, so yeah, it's healthy to have a fear of getting run over. However, you shouldn't put yourself in that position at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, so that's not the fear we're talking about. The fear you're talking about, if I'm understanding this, is not trusting enough in God to deliver us from what's coming.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to get at was fear of, first of all, why are we afraid, and what are we afraid of? Are we afraid of the government's oppressing us to the point where they're, running purges and of the Christians and the rest of the people on this earth so they can do what they want? Are we afraid of not having enough for ourselves? Are we afraid of, what are the general fears people share out there? But then taking it further, are those fears based on what our priorities are for ourselves and our ambitions, what we want for ourselves and our future, or are they what God wants for us? And most of at least in my own case, none of my fears come from what God wants for me or what God wants me to do on this earth. They come from what I envision will happen or what I, in my own mind, depending on what actions I'll take or what actions they'll take. It doesn't. When I have my head completely in the Spirit of the Lord, it is not inundated with or makes me worry. I'm not worried about if North Korea is going to have nuclear war. I'm not worried about an economic collapse, even to the point that if it were to happen at that moment, it's like, so I wouldn't care. So what?
No, you're replacing fear with trust, and a very well placed trust, and one that's very well earned. So we understand that. We came a far cry from our initial topic, but just to, and by the way, I think that's a great, what you mentioned there is I think it's very important for people to really grasp, because we talk about some pretty dire things here, don't we? We talk about the economic collapse. We talk about the potential for enslavement. Not potential, we're seeing it happen right before our eyes. I mean, we are becoming a prison planet. We are becoming this nation, our nation, is a captured operation. We understand that. And we know that difficult times are coming, especially for Christians.
Right. And we get beat down with the physical world, whether people we're being attacked through our things that we have, our material possessions, to our emotional our emotional pain, our physical pain. That's the things that are being attacked. The flesh is being attacked. But also now people are feeling this great spiritual intensity. Also, spiritual attacks are increasing. A lot of people would say, yes, I feel the shift. When we always refer to the Obama election, people felt some kind of change. You couldn't put your finger on it, you can't explain it, but you feel it. Now this is getting more intense with more people. As this continues to grow, like the birth pains of a woman in labor, it reaches a point where the baby's delivered, the pain stops, and in our case, I guess that would be, the Lord coming back, or us, being martyred for the Lord, where that everything we know in a blink of an eye, when facing whatever is coming, that aha moment. This is what it is. That's what we don't have to be afraid of the unknown just because it's unknown. We do know what it is. We just don't know exactly what it is and how it will take shape. And that was the kind of the whole point of this. There is nothing we need to fear with any of the news, with any of the things that are going to happen.
Not if we have the trust.
God, right, and have the trust in Him. And I do still fear God, even if I have 100% of my trust in Him.
Well, you fear God as a just Father, right? I mean, if you look at God as a just and righteous Father, you would fear Him as one.
And this other point, I know we're up against the break, and we'll go to that now, but a lot of when we were talking, Steve was talking about forgiveness. And I don't know if I ever made this point or on the radio, but I was talking with somebody. And the biggest, we go through who we need to forgive, and forgiveness is a major part of the change of your heart when you're working with God to make yourself better. The biggest obstacle and thing we need to forgive is ourselves, because that fear of God stems from my guilty conscience.
But you know what?
In a way.
I know we're late for the break, and thank you, stations, for putting up with our tardiness. But I have to say this before we go to break. I don't know why. This morning I was thinking very heavily about. Have you thought about the hurt and the pain that you may have caused or might have caused others during your life? And have you just stopped to think about that, whether it's through your words or your deeds? And you think, my goodness, of the pain that I caused others, especially if it was intentional or whether it was unintentional, it doesn't really matter. And you think about the hurt that you've caused. Yeah, certainly there's an element of self-forgiveness there. But have you reached out, if it's still possible, to say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to hurt you at that level. Have you done that, ladies and gentlemen? Have you taken that time just to say, look, whether it be to your mom or your dad or your brother or sister, aunt, uncle, whatever, son, daughter, just say, boy, I'm really sorry for causing you whatever hurt I caused you. I don't know what made me think of that, but just think about that, ladies and gentlemen, because as time grows short, we're not, we may not have that possibility. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Terribly off track tonight, but there goes the first hour. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I want to thank you for keeping with us. New listeners coming up as we pick up the stations on the second hour, and right back after these messages.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's canadafreepress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at canadafreepress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Monday, March 25th edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. This is Joe Hagmann, joining me along with my co-host, Doug Hagmann. And we are going to hit some news here real quick. First, more on Syria. Syria chemical weapons, finger pointed at jihadists. A Syrian army source gives the first account of what is believed to have been a chemical attack. It could mean that one of the West's biggest fears is about to come true. Channel 4's Alex Thompson reports. Whatever happened last week in the town of Khan al-Assal, west of Aleppo.
Yeah.
It achieved something extraordinary in the Syrian civil war: unity among Washington, Moscow, and Damascus. All welcome the rapid decision by Ban Ki-moon, the United Nations Secretary General, also a terrible tyrant, to investigate an alleged chemical attack reportedly killing 26 Syrian soldiers. Unusually, the request for that investigation came from the Syrian regime, which claimed that the Islamic jihadist rebels launched the chemical weapons attack. Since then, precious little evidence in any way has come from the area, despite an awful lot of diplomatic noise around the world. However, a source close to the Syrian army has given Channel 4 News his first clear account of what he claims is believed to have occurred on Tuesday. It is trusted and does not wish to be identified. Says the Syrian military is said to believe that a homemade, locally manufactured rocket was fired containing a form of chlorine known as Cl-17, easily available as swimming pool cleaner. They claim that the warhead contained a quantity of the gas it dissolved in a dissolved saline solution. But either way, we have weapons. We know the Al-Qaeda Syrians have been given all this aid, these weapons from the U.S. and NATO agencies. Now think of this scenario. A level 4 biohazard lab in Texas loses a weaponized virus. It goes. This article from RT says, whatever you do, don't go making out with any mice for a little bit. A Texas laboratory has misplaced a small vial containing a rodent-borne virus that has been linked to several deaths.
That whole sentence there, just so you know this, that whole sentence there is mired with mis and disinformation, because that virus that has been identified as missing has a mortality rate of 30% or 40%, depending on who you ask. It is transmissible between humans. It is not just mice or rodents that carry this alleged virus, this alleged that is allegedly missing. So, we're not being told the truth on this. Why, ladies and gentlemen, are we not being told the truth about what is taking place at these level 4 these higher level bio facilities? That's the question that needs to be asked. But don't believe that this is a that the transmission between, or that this is an innocuous virus that's missing. So I just want
sound is transforming as you speak.
Okay. That's what I was trying to do during the break here because of the extra load here. I need to reconnect somehow, so as you do as well.
Rejoin.
With Christians United, right?
You can hang up and hit join call again. With the current.
Yeah, I try to do this. Is this better? Because I know
different.
That it's different. I know at the top of the hour that things go a little bit hairier, to the left sometimes.
All right, you try it again. What I'm going to do is cue up this audio here. What's happened in Syria is that the opposition has elected an interim prime minister. This from Al Jazeera.
Syria's new prime minister, at least as far as the opposition in exile as well as their international supporters are concerned. Hassan Hito's first priority, forming a cabinet. Based inside Syria, the interim government will need to establish legitimacy with people living in the 60% of the country estimated to be under control of anti-Assad forces.
Tomorrow there will be a speech, and you will hear through the speech the program and an introduction of the highlights of the plan for the near future.
From the general who represents the majority of the armed groups fighting the Assad regime, there's a promise of loyalty.
We in the Free Syrian Army look to the government as a political umbrella for us, and we can ask the government when we have this government to support us with everything what we need in our struggle and in our fight against the dictator regime in Damascus.
But Idris can't speak for the small number of well-armed Islamist groups, and that's what worries foreign donors. There's a hope amongst delegates here that having most armed fighters under the umbrella of this new interim government will persuade the US and European countries to supply weapons to anti-Assad fighters. They've been reluctant so far, fearing those arms will fall into the hands of religious extremists. Some European countries are also worried about starting an arms race, but then Iran and Russia are already resupplying Assad's forces. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera, Istanbul.
So there you have it, an interim prime minister set up in Syria now, as the Assad regime is no longer in power.
Well,
apparently.
that's what the media wants people to believe. Now, does this sound better? By the way, I just because of the load, ladies and gentlemen, we're. Thanks for bearing with us. We're growing. We're reaching more people. This program is international in scope, and a lot of times, sometimes we have to just recalibrate things, especially after the top of the hour. And I do want to say too, this hour is being sponsored by Freeze Dry Guy, folks. If you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on the banner for Freeze Dry Guy. I got to tell you, they've got a lot of specials for freeze dry food for April. And I think some specials still for March. I know that this is kind of a commercial, or it is because of the sponsorship, but I do know that if you contact Freeze Dry Guy, contact them, tell them your situation, whether you've got 3 people in your family or you're the only one or you got 15 people, it doesn't matter. He'll work with you and set you up on a good, solid package for freeze-dried food. Now is the time to order. And I was told, not by this gentleman, but I was told by another supplier that freeze-dried food is like ammunition, starting to become very rare. Or it's I shouldn't say rare, but it's difficult to get certain items. So whatever you might do it as soon as you can. And while I'm on that topic, let me ask the question, ladies and gentlemen, what have you done this past weekend? Have you taken any steps this past weekend, even if it was a baby step, to maybe add to your preps, even if it was an extra can of soup? That's just one can closer to having a more full pantry, I should say. I just wanted to mention that. But yes, getting back to Syria, the interim prime minister set up via the jihadists, via the Muslim Brotherhood terrorists, essentially. This is the plan. But is Russia going to put up with this? We are fighting a proxy war with Russia, folks. Joe, I mean, what do you think about this? Based on your research, what do you think about this?
I'm looking back at this, the weaponized virus missing from a level 4 security
all right, let's go back to
biolab. And a biosafety level 4 lab. They are biosafety labs under the U.S. Bioterrorism Act are primarily regulated and must be registered with either the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention or the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They handle the world's most dangerous agents and diseases. In fact, of the 4 labs, level 4,
they're the most secure, right? I mean, they're the...
Right.
Okay.
These designations can work with agents for which no cure or treatment exists. The Government Accountability Office was asked to perform a systematic security assessment of key perimeter security controls at the nation's 5 operational BSL 4-level labs. To meet this objective, the GAO performed a physical security assessment of the perimeter of each lab using a security survey it developed and focused primarily on 15 physical security controls based on their expertise in commonly accepted physical security principles. Now, my question is, what are you work at a level 4 biosafety or biotech lab, right?
I do.
You can't, it's like the Federal Reserve. You can't go into the Federal Reserve as an employee, let's say, who reloads paper into a machine and walk out with a case of uncut $100 bills. Right? Just like you shouldn't be able to walk into, even if you work there, a biosafety lab, no matter what level.
Agreed.
And walk out with a disease, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this article goes on to say that they noticed that there was a missing virus due to a check of their inventory.
Right.
There was a routine inspection last week that left the facility scratching their head.
Oh, geez. I wonder if... I won't even make a joke on this. Look, what they're saying is that this vial test tube contains a form of hemorrhagic fever, and they can't account for it, just as they can't account for the plutonium. This is a different, of course, situation, but you watch as the story evolves. It will likely turn into a bookkeeping or an inventory error. Oh, it was here. We just didn't, whatever.
Listen to how this article continues. It goes on to say that they have a logbook of all viruses stored, and the logbook contains all the people, dates and times of the people who entered the labs and what they used and touched and when they left. Now, it says this is the first time any vial containing a select agent has been unaccounted for at the UTBN, which is this University of Texas vial lab. The CDC immediately and simultaneously began a rigorous process to ensure the safety of its researchers, employees, and the community. The UTMB has confirmed that there was no breach of the facility security, and there is no indication that any wrongdoing is involved.
Well, that makes me feel better. Well, think about Plum Island, for example. Think about Lyme disease. And where it originated and how it was spread, and essentially germs gone wild. And if you look at the really horrific secrets that some of these locations hold, I think that we would the pathogens that are kept at these facilities. I had read just today during my research for the program. This is kind of off topic a tad, but think about this. NASA, for example, one of the most infiltrated departments of our government by spies, by Chinese and spies. NASA. What's going on with these labs and the security clearances? Obviously, there's a problem. We have a problem with not only inventory control and security, but we also have this need to allow anyone access to just about anything. And I say that not recklessly, but with absolute certain or with authority, because if you look at what's taking place at these labs, in fact, on I believe it was Conspiracy series. I'm not sure if Jesse Ventura did. Did
Jesse
this.
Ventura. What's the name of the show?
Let me grab this book.
He did the Plum Island episode.
Okay, that's where it was. Yes.
You guys ever heard of the Montauk Monster?
Yes,
the Montauk Monster is Plum Island's about 40 some miles off the coast of Long Island in the Atlantic Ocean, or Long Island Sound there. And this Montauk is a place on Long Island, and this hideous-looking half pig, half dog floated up on the shores of Montauk, and they dubbed it the Montauk Monster.
In fact, that I believe that washed up when we were working in New York City. I'm not sure. No? It was a big war?
It was something weirder happened. There was something that washed up that they don't have pictures of that says was like a human, looked like a human wearing jeans with no shirt, really long fingers, like really messed up. And I don't remember where that story came from, but I heard about that. The only picture I've seen is from that actual Montauk Monster.
Okay, I just want to mention this because Jesse Ventura did write a book, and I want to thank Marianne so much for sending this book, 63 Documents the Government Doesn't Want You to Read. This is by Jesse Ventura, U.S. Capabilities in Chemical and Biological Warfare. But folks, think about this, really, because this does overlap with what we're talking about. Consider that, it's hard to imagine, really. Can you imagine Congress holding a hearing in open session? Let me just. Boy, you see, I can't really multitask. That's why I don't do the chat room here. Jesse Ventura writes, I found the transcript Okay, well, let me just start this. Agent Orange is the topic here. U.S. capabilities in chemical and biological warfare. Jesse Ventura writes this. It's hard to imagine today's Congress holding this kind of hearing in anything but a closed-door top-secret session, but there seemed to be a lot more openness in our government as the 60s came to a close. I found the transcript of this House subcommittee to be a real eye-opener, not only in terms of the research and development going on at the time, and I realized that this was during the Cold War with the Russians, but how innocently we were using herbicides in Vietnam. And he goes on to talk about Agent Orange and about the experimentation with Agent Orange, and the fact that it's just appalling to know that we have this capability to use as we so desire. It's truly survive at any cost, he writes, where we have no moral high ground on anything. He questions this. But the reason I bring this up is if you look at the Department of Defense appropriations for 1970, for example, the open source documents about chemical and biological warfare, holy cow, will this open up your eyes, the fact that we've got some of the most outrageously nasty and deadly, of course this is not news to you folks, but the chemical and biological warfare agents at these facilities and the lack of security over them, and yet we continue to develop these chemical and biological weapons to the extent that it would just be, it's just crazy. It's crazy, and the lack of the admitted lack of security at these facilities. In open source documentation, it extends for about 11 pages in his book, but about the development of biological weapons, for example, being extremely deadly, being extremely contagious, and in front of open source, in front of Congress, these people at these facilities saying, you know what, the controls aren't there. So, are we surprised? Should we be surprised by this? Is this going to be part of the headlines a month from now or 6 months from now where this will show up or something else will show up? Bacteria? Some sort of bioweapon? I don't know. But this is something that we have to keep our eyes on. And, you know, remember last week when we talked about folding money, carrying some sort of pathogen or some sort of biological component? If you didn't hear any part of last week's broadcast to the new listeners, one of the pieces of information we received, Joe and I, was the fact that in order to push us to a pure digital currency, what better way than to perhaps sully the money or infect or use some sort of pathogen or chemical or whatever on the money itself to make people turn in their money, so to ease us into a purely digital type of currency. I know I strayed from topic, but nonetheless, you get the idea. So this does have something to do with this agent. All right.
A few things on the police state we live in.
Oh, yes.
FAA is predicting 10,000 drones to be in the skies by 2020. I'd say there are probably 20,000 there now, so I don't know if they're going to decrease or if they're ever going to catch up, to tell the truth. But the FAA predicts 10,000 commercial drones could be in the skies by 2020 after the guidelines are approved. For now, Congress has asked the FAA to write regulations on civil operation of small unmanned aircraft systems in the national airspace, then submit them by 2015. So this is commercial drones, the commercial use of drones. So on top of the 30,000, is this on top of the 30,000 drones?
I have to tell you, according to our sources right now, we've got
more drones than New York City has cars.
Well, the drones are already flying over every state.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's a matter of who's flying them: the DHS, local authorities, journalists, news, police. You know,
you gotta wonder what. I know. Well, I saw that headline. And I thought, man, you know, what is this? About 5 years old or what? But
yeah,
not right.
Also, the Department of Homeland Security has purchased another 360,000 rounds of ammunition, as it refuses to tell Congress why.
No, I've got something to say about this because in fact, I was doing an article about this, and I was speaking to a gentleman by the name of William Bear. He was formerly the Bear Haggerty Offensive, is no longer on the air, but Billy Bear is a good guy, good friend. His video of the New Jersey Tea Party meeting, I think this is 2 weeks ago. In fact, it's on HomelandSecurityUS.com. Put it up there last week. And he videotaped a question to Congressman Lance of New Jersey, asking him, okay, what's up with the purchases? What's going on with this, with the ammunition and all of DHS being armed to the teeth against the American people, essentially? Well, Congressman Lance, said he's concerned too, and he, of course, Billy Bear sent me a copy of a letter Congressman Lance sent to the DHS. We're going to be posting it. It's dated March 20th. That said, folks, this weekend, the social media networks were just buzzing as a result of statements made by a retired U.S. Army captain. His name is Terry Hestelow. Folks, did you read about this? I know that this is on
the DHS. Retired captain DHS announcing a bold threat of war against U.S. citizens.
Right, he was an Army captain talking about DHS. He's not DHS. He's involved in DHS, right.
I'll post this in the chat room right now.
Right. And, in fact, his questions and his concerns and his assertions that the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, there's a bold threat of war against the American people, that if you were listening to Alex Jones this weekend, of course, Alex Jones had a special video alert, where he went in and talked about this. Well, the Department of Homeland Security, their recent armament acquisitions are, in fact, a prelude to war, a war against the American people. Questions regarding the arming of the Department of Homeland Security to alarming standards. Look, this has been a matter of concern and controversy for over a year. Why now? Why are we seeing this now? Not in the alternative media, but the question is, why are we seeing the concern today in the mainstream media? And I'm talking about like Forbes or The Atlantic, I believe it is, had reported on this. Why today, after all of this time? This would be, in my opinion, like all of a sudden Fox reporting on the eligibility issue. It doesn't really make sense after holding it so secret for so long. Now, folks, listeners to this program and readers of my investigative reports on HomelandSecurityUS.com and also CanadaFreePress.com know that we've been following this for a long time. I've addressed this through multiple contacts with my high-level DH insider source, and according to my source, we are now at the end game scenario. They are preparing for war against the American people. Yes, they are, but there's a difference. There's a difference today versus, we'll say, a couple of months ago. What is it? Well, the transparency is being lifted. And by the way,
transparency.
Or I'm sorry, the veil of the curtain has been lifted.
Look at Bloomberg, what he said. The government has the right to infringe on your freedom. Mayor Bloomberg said on Sunday, sometimes governments does know what's best, and in those cases, Americans should secede their rights.
Of course.
Mayor Bloomberg, I will secede to you my rights.
Right? Your 32-ounce big gulp or whatever. No,
I'll just secede myself from ever returning to your state again. How's that? Or your city. I'm sorry. But Cuomo's no better. I got a quote from Andrew Cuomo here that we can play. People who oppose gun control laws are paranoid extremists. New York Governor Cuomo told Susan Arbetter on Capitol Press Room this week that those who oppose gun control are paranoid extremists and conspiracy theorists. I think the paralysis in Washington on this issue is sad. Frankly, if this nation doesn't get it after Newtown, Connecticut, people all across the nation are begging their governments to respond. What the extremists do is spread fear and unrealistic theories of conspiracies and the citizenry that needs to be armed because the government is possibly tyrannical. And they need their arms to defend themselves against the tyrannical government. Cuomo continued. This is true at gun rallies. I've heard this slippery slope line of argument from multiple attendees. They view the right to bear arms as a kind of check against government power. End of quote. So, well, let me read you this out of to give Cuomo, who I know is not listening, but in case he is, a history lesson. The Nazis, along with the Soviet Union, used to dispense justice through strictly an administrative process, which there was no appeal. This was called the confinement and concentration camps. And execution was the way most political cases were handled. Right. The Soviet police exercised basically the same thing, also forcibly resettling suspected enemies of the people. Suspected enemies of the people. Sounds pretty familiar, right? Well, presumption of innocence of an accused man was no longer the rule of law. They turned it into guilty until proven innocent, or guilty because we say so. So, just in the last 100 years, we went through democide. What that is, the history of governments killing their own people. It's the number one cause of death in the last 100 years. Through the Ottoman Empire, up and through USSR, through Mao in China, Hitler in Germany, and there's lots of cases. We can continue listing. We've done shows on this before. But between Cuomo and Bloomberg, I mean, talk about a couple match made in heaven. Bloomberg is saying, I do think at certain times we should infringe on your freedom. And he said that during his discussion on the soda ban that was just shut down by the courts. We think the judge was just clearly wrong on this, he said. Our Department of Health has the legal ability to do this. They're not banning anything. Mr. Bloomberg remaining months in office have included a firestorm of regulations and policy pushes on a wide range of issues. Aside from the soda ban and a well-publicized call for tighter gun control, another contentious policy he pushed, nudging hospitals to lock up baby formula to force mothers to breastfeed newborns.
It's really crazy, and we are going to get into things that do relate to this, especially with the Supreme Court. But on this issue of the DHS purchases, I don't know whether you saw the Senator Tom Coburn, who was on Fox over the weekend, saying that all these purchases are nothing out of the ordinary, that there's nothing to worry about.
Who was that?
Senator Tom Coburn. He was on Fox this past, I think it was on Sunday, on one of the shows on Sunday. I'm not sure if it was with Chris Wallace or not, but saying that these purchases are nothing out of the ordinary. We've got nothing to worry about. But Napolitano, and even Holder, but Napolitano especially needs to be called to Congress and under oath be held accountable for all these purchases involving weapons, vehicles, armor, and ammo, which are made well beyond the scope of her agency. She is at this point, when her denials are falling flat, yet you've got 15 congressmen at present who are demanding explanations. My question is, do you think that any explanations are going to be forthcoming? No, of course not.
And if they are they going to have any truth to them?
No, not at all. Not at all. But remember when Obama was elected, he specifically called for a civilian force equal in strength to our military? There was nobody who questioned that statement. I mean, nobody in the media, that is, who questioned that statement. Now, look, the situation is this. We are being prepared by both sides. Well, actually, there's only one political party. We are being prepared for battle here on the home front. And it's going to originate from what? It's going to originate from the economic woes. It's going to originate. Imagine waking up tomorrow and having 30% or 40%, I won't say 30% of your annuity, your 401k, your retirement gone from your account. Do you think there's going to be any blowback from that? Of course there will be. You don't think it's and folks, I would urge everyone to listen to Friday's program that we had the Financial Insider V on with Steve Quayle. It is we did make it available on YouTube for those who want to listen to it via YouTube, or just the 2 hours that Steve and V were on.
Yeah.
But what happens in Cyprus is not going to stay in Cyprus. They know that this is going to come to America via Japan and the Eurozone. Go ahead.
The Cyprus the finance minister has ordered all the country's banks to remain closed until Thursday. The country's central bank announced. Just hours before the announcement, late Monday, the central bank said all but two country's largest banks would be opening on Tuesday morning. But on Monday, Cyprus reached a $13 billion bailout deal with the international leaders aimed at avoiding a potential financial collapse, but forcing the country's second largest bank, Cyprus Popular Bank, to be restructured, with people holding over $100,000 in their accounts facing substantial losses. So you're going to face losses in this country for holding your money in their bank. This isn't an investment. This isn't a risk that they took betting on the stock market.
Right.
This is supposed to be money that they put away that was already taxed by the government, I'm sure, when they earned it, and should do nothing but collect interest if they have any kind of interest rates in their country.
Well, pretty soon we're going to be, just in this country, we're going to be paying, and those of you who are listening across the world, pretty soon you're going to be paying money, you're going to be paying the banks to hold your money.
And now, analysis estimate people will face up to a 40% decrease in their savings.
But see, we're already going through that now. If I went to I did the family grocery shopping.
It's a double hit.
Right.
Double whammy.
Have you and guys, if you haven't gone to the grocery store lately for your wives, do so. I encourage you to do so. Of course, make sure your wife gives you a list so you don't go off the reservation, so to speak, and really screw up the family meals for the week. But if you're in my situation, make sure you go with your wife so she can. There you go. Regardless of the situation, if you go to the store, you look at the loss of your purchasing power. This is created deliberately through the policies, through the Keynesian economic policies that are in place right now, among other things. The devaluation of the dollar. Look at what you're buying. People think, well, it's not so bad. Look at the sizes of the containers for food, whether it's cereal or peanut butter or coffee or anything. They're getting smaller, or the prices are raised.
I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's fine.
I don't mean people who say that it's not that big of a deal. There's two types of people who say that. One, who have a plan and know that everything will be okay in the long run, those who are in the Lord. And then there's those who say that because they don't understand the ramifications it will have. But when is injustice okay? When is it all right to say, you know what, I'm okay with this because I know how it's going to turn out in the end. Meanwhile, you're getting raped and pillaged. Okay, well, there's certain, that's too broad of a question to answer. If you're talking about things like we're seeing in Cyprus, okay, does that justify violence against somebody else? Or are you needing to defend yourself? No. You're muted.
I'm yelling at your microphone. No, that's not even the issue, though. It's not the issue. The issue is a matter of justice. Are we going to allow these globalists to force to take away? What does our money represent? Our money represents our life's work. For every dollar, it represents an allotment of our time, does it not? I mean, that's what it is, an investment of our time. We work, we earn dollars or money. Money is then taken from us, so we're being robbed of our time. But worse, our children and their children are being robbed, are they not? From what these globalist international bankers are doing, and are we to say this is okay? No, of course not. I don't. The only time, or one of the times that Jesus was upset was in the temple with the money changers. Now, I mean, to me, that's a significant. That's pretty significant. I mean, to me,
right.
So
I agree, but I'm saying that there's a difference between, governments stealing your money out of a bank account versus actually being attacked personally.
Okay, but I'm going to say something to you. John Corzine, MF Global, $1.6 billion, segregated accounts. This guy's walking around, and we talked about this too. I showed when I wrote the article back, I don't know, a year ago, showed a video of a guy walking out of the store with a DVD worth $10 tucked in his coat, and got the snot beat out of him.
I believe John Corzine should be put on trial and is found guilty, thrown in prison for the rest of his life.
But look at how many lives that this man has ruined. See,
but what are you going to do? I mean, could one of those people who lost their money go to John Corzine and physically get it back from him? No. But what we can do is we can stop feeding the beast. And this was a conversation. And I'm glad you brought this up. That's a choice. Stopping feeding the beast is a choice. Having your money taken out of your banks isn't. But by not using banks, that is a way to stop feeding the beast.
Well, yes, but when I say stop feeding the beast, I'm saying, okay, if everyone, for example, stopped paying taxes, and I'm reminded my good friend telling me about Irwin Schiff being in jail, a gentleman that asked a simple question. He's in jail for not paying. Well, no, let me be very clear on this. He was put in jail because of a tax issue. He objected to how the taxes. He objected to. He wanted to find out, or he wanted constitutional verification for the tax law. Now, it's not exactly correct, but and I'm trying to just abbreviate this. In a courtroom setting, he was brought into court. He was a defendant in a court case about a tax issue. Okay. And he just simply asked the judge, show me where the Constitution, where in the law, where in the Constitution it states that, for example, that I am required, to pay these taxes. And, of course, the judge responded, I am the law in this courtroom, and the Constitution basically doesn't apply. Of course, I'm paraphrasing this. But look how far we've gone. Folks, let me ask you a question. And, Joe, let me ask you a question. You might be a little bit too young. But when I say the name Leona Helmsley, what kind of connotations, what does that bring to your mind? A crotchety woman, really a bad woman who didn't pay her taxes, right? No, Leona Helmsley is anything but that. Well, I mean, look, she's not a bad woman. Her tax returns were, 6,000 pages long. I mean, just an incredible tax return. She was one of the best hoteliers in New York. She was put in prison for not paying. I believe it was like 1/10 of being 1/10 of 1% off of not paying the taxes. She had already paid $6 million in taxes, I believe, or $25 million, some obscene amount in taxes, and it was just a 1/10 of 1% off, and she was made an example of. The reason I brought this up, or the reason that we're talking about this, is because the tax system, as will Obamacare be. It's all about control and centralization of authority. This is what we're facing. This goes circles right back into what we were talking about at the very beginning of the program. What do these people want? Well, they're enslaving us. They're enslaving us through their confiscatory tax system, and they're enslaving us now through the Obamacare system, which was created by IRS agents, and it's going to be enforced through IRS agents. And we are going to be subjugated to these laws, these obscene laws that no one has read. The Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act, has grown to over 20,000 pages. Do you think that anybody has read this or can even understand it? And that's the whole point of this, is we are now being thrown into the system of chains, of being in a prison. And folks, this is by design. It all circles right back to this, and every one of the representatives that we talked about last week too. I'm trying to think of the name of the guy at CPAC who said it must be defunded. This must be defunded. The Obamacare, root and branch, it must be defunded. 2 days later, turns around, conservative Republican, 2 days later turns around and votes to fund Obamacare. We're being lied to at every turn, is my point. It doesn't matter what people say, what our leaders say anymore. All that matters is the fact that what has been set in motion is going to enslave us, and people better wake up. And not only enslave us, but enslave our children. And when we get to heaven, or when we're up there, and in a blink of an eye next, when our sons and daughters and their sons and daughters arrive behind us, are they going to curse us for not doing anything while we could? Are they going to curse our name for not doing anything while we could? Is it not our responsibility to say, no, we're not going to allow this? Which brings me into, look at what the Supreme Court now is doing. Have you seen that? This is all part. It's all part of the same mindset. The Supreme Court now entertaining gay rights. Let me rephrase that: entertaining homosexual rights. What are we doing to this country? We're destroying the social and moral fabric of this country. Are we not? I think we are. In fact,
well, I'm not trying to do that. I don't know. Government, yes.
But by not speaking out, are we being complicit by not speaking out?
Yes.
All right. Abortion, are we being complicit by not speaking out? Absolutely. Yet we pay our taxes, and this goes back to taxes too. I
sent an invoice this year, so I hope they return my invoice paid in full in a timely fashion, or I'll send my agents to confiscate their property and seize their accounts and such.
Well, yeah. Okay. Wow.
I mean, just take it different. Everybody send them an invoice.
Or just stop paying and say, look, until the thing is this, folks, our judiciary is corrupted and captured. Do you think for a moment that we can get a fair trial in a judicial setting? Of course we can't. And for example, where do you go when the judiciary is corrupted? What recourse, what redress do you have? We don't have any anymore. So getting back to where we're at now, our government is providing money to countries with the stipulation that they provide abortions. Our country right now is entertaining, via the Supreme Court, the same-sex marriage, the homosexual agenda. We're gone. I mean, folks, we're gone. I don't know what to say anymore.
Well, what you said about Corzine, and this is something I wanted to read last week, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, just the first, I think, 1 through 10. Dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unjust and not before the saints? Do you not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matters? Know ye not that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? If then ye have judgments of things pertaining to this life, set them to judge who are least esteemed in the church. I speak to your shame. Is it so that there is not a wise man among you? No, not one shall be able to judge between his brethren. But brother goeth to law with brother, and that before the unbelievers. Now therefore, there is utterly a fault among you, because you go to law one with another. Why do you not rather take the wrong? Why not rather suffer yourselves to be defrauded? Nay, ye do wrong and defraud, and that your brethren. Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind. And such were some of you, but you were washed, and you were sanctified. But you are justified in the name of the Lord Jesus by the Spirit of our God. That all things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient.
But that doesn't give us a pass not to speak, not to object, not to say no, not in America. Does it?
Well, let's think about this. What defeated the angels falling from heaven and trying to establish themselves like God? What is the end? What is the one word that defeated all the evil on this earth?
I don't know.
And overcame death. It's love. Jesus came here, did not sin, was a perfect man, and out of love for us, he laid down his physical life.
Wait a second. So are you suggesting?
Not to.
Because you know where I'm going with this, right?
Right. You got to understand. I mean, we've had these discussions many times. You know my feelings on certain things, but we have to understand. Like you say, pick your battles.
Here's where I'm picking my battle.
Are you being led by God to fight, or are you fighting from your own will? That's a question you need to ask yourself before engaging anybody for any reason.
Well, I don't think God is too happy with the Supreme Court hearing arguments in 2 cases this week that have the potential to transform our society into Sodom.
His agenda. What if we are, or not part of his agenda, what if we as a nation have been so lax in keeping up with our spiritual selves that we have allowed the delusion to be brought upon us to where it's so bad that people are being deceived.
So what do we do? Lay down?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you ask God for that. And it depends on, it's all a matter of circumstance.
Well, unless I got my wires crossed or I'm tuned to the wrong channel, God's telling me to speak up and not to put up with this. Okay. Because I'll tell you one thing here.
Speak up. I'm just saying, before we do anything, this is the moral of the story. We need to know if it's God's will or our will. And if it's our will, we need to stop and ask God what he wants us to do, or how we can turn the situation into a positive for him or an example for someone else. We do too much of our own wills, and we're all guilty of it, especially me, on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I got to say this. If God was transmitting over, we'll say an AM station, folks, you know what I'm talking about, how you tune that knob and you try to get an AM station in pretty clear. I got a clear signal telling me to stand up and say that enough is enough. This is wrong, and it is your duty as a Christian, because I think a lot of Christians, folks, I'm sorry, but I think a lot of Christians are being silent at the wrong times. I don't hear Christians speaking up right now, and I certainly, I'll tell you what, and to me, that's not Christianity. That's, and conservatives. Okay, so let's say, well, Christianity is. Let's not talk about Christianity. Let's talk about the political aspect or the social political aspect of it. If you're a conservative, how can you not speak up and say, wait a second, this is wrong, abortion's wrong, homosexuality is wrong. I don't care if you've got a member of your family that's a homosexual. It doesn't matter to me. It's wrong. Okay. And the Supreme Court now, this week, is going to be hearing 2 cases that will transform the entire fabric of America. Oh, but it gets worse. California, folks, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, starting tomorrow, the 9 justices are going to start to consider the voter-approved ban on gay marriage, Proposition 8, which, quote, unfairly discriminates against gay people. In other words, let me translate that for you. It does not grant homosexuals the same right as heterosexuals. On Wednesday, they're going to consider whether the 1996 DOMA Act is barring the government from recognizing same-sex marriages, allows them, even in states that allow them, whether it constitutes a federal overreach. That's what it says. Or that's what they're talking about. Just so people know that.
And remember, Prop 8 was voted on by the people of California to ban gay marriage, and the Supreme Court came in and ruled it unconstitutional afterwards. Remember that? The Rachel Maddow getting angry about the mayor taking out somebody and putting in somebody through their government authority rather than the election results. But you don't hear a peep out of her tearing apart the California decision because, for the same reason, overturning the American public's voting result and turning it into their own agenda. And it doesn't matter what the Supreme Court's rule on this. We know where this is headed. We know, this nation is gone.
It doesn't. But we can't, look, we have to still show up for the fight, because if we don't, we're complicit in this. That's my view, folks. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We're already up against the top of the hour. This hour sponsored by Grandland Firearms. That's grandlandfirearms.com. We're going to be right back after these messages. Stay with us.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
When I listen to radio, I'm afraid I hear baloney. Now, one of them got fired on MSNBC finally, the old fat one, who thought that by bashing white men who looked like himself would be job security. Little did he know that by bashing old fat white men on a daily basis, it was suicide. So I'm asking you, what are you looking for in a radio show? If you want to call on that, that's not what I'm going to get stuck on. There are many other things I want to talk about. In fact, I want to direct you to michaelsavage.com for one of the articles that impressed me as an example of how far down the road we've gone towards fascism and socialism. And it starts out with a benign headline. Wisconsin's VISTA program encourages volunteers to overcome white privilege. And they're encouraging white people who work in VISTA to wear white wristbands as a reminder of their, quote, white privilege, and a personal commitment to explain to minorities why they wear the white wristband on their hand. It's in a power and privilege section on racial injustice. Now, by the way, this is paid for by federal money, and this is for white liberals who work with low-income, racially diverse public schools to examine the privilege their Caucasian race confers on them. This document, telling them to wear a white wristband if they're white, was written by a so-called Diversity Resource Center in New Jersey. And it suggests that white people ask themselves questions such as, how do I ignore privilege? What am I doing today to undo my privilege? How do I fool myself into thinking I am powerless? And on and on and on. Now, you don't know who started this madness, do you, this Nazism? At the top of this webpage is a quotation from feminist so-called Gloria Steinem that reads, of course, the first problem for all of us, she wrote, men and women, is not to learn but to unlearn. Did you hear this? What you don't know is this was common in Mao Zedong's China. Did you know any of this? Did you know that we're now living in a communist revolution under Obama? Did you understand any of this? You know that the whole concept of white privilege has been totally manufactured by communist professors as part of the social justice movement to make white people uncomfortable with their own race, to make white children uncomfortable for being born white. And it's being pushed by Nazis of color, by the way. The fact of the matter is, this is right out of Mao Zedong's China. Now, the poster boy for this movement of being embarrassed by his race was just fired by MSNBC. He thought that by bashing fat old white men as being privileged would ensure him job security. Little did he know, old Ed Schultz, that he'd be thrown out the door. Next to go will be Chris Matthews, another psychotic, in my estimation, who thinks that his stock and trade of bashing white males, hey, them white males have to go. Now, this is an old Democrat drunk, a lifetime Tip O'Neill drunk type. The poster boy for this movement, he himself thinks it's his job security. Let me explain this to you. So many white people will get angry hearing about this. They're going to write things as they've written on this article, such as this. Yeah, and you're sure you don't want to mention that you worked hard, made sacrifices, and denied yourself many things in order to achieve those things that you did, Mr. White Man? That you worked nights, 2 jobs, went without a car, so you could achieve those goals? You wouldn't want to burden those folks with your problems or give them any ideas that one just might have some personal responsibility for reaching those goals. Another one wrote, yeah, I should not mention that I, as a white man, worked a day job, went to school at night, and then worked a part-time job on the weekends. And after at school at night, I got another job during those nights until my career took off. You hear this? So this went on in Nazi Germany when Jews were forced to wear a Star of David. It went on in Mao Zedong's time in China. And this is what leftist progressive Democrats are doing to this country, mainly to your children. They couldn't do it to me. I'd spit in their face. They couldn't do it to you because you know better than to listen to this crap. But they're doing it to your children in colleges across America. And so I have no question to ask you. This is the equivalent of the Star of David during World War II, we know. Another person points out that it's more like the mandatory self-criticism sessions during Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution. And then finally someone writes this. Look around you and see what has started under Obama. They are demonizing whites, Jews, Christians, gun owners, and rich people. Add to that list if you want, but they have their targets, and they're making sure that there will be a revolution. Have you noticed that there is no ammunition available? Then someone wrote, the Soviets did the same thing with the kulaks. They were the farmers, by the way. They were deemed enemies and treated accordingly. So unless you know your history, you're condemned to repeat it. And what the communazis are doing in America's universities today is repeating history, a very dark chapter in the history of the world. Read it. It's on michaelsavage.com. It's linked up from CNS News.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
have the truth. We got to have the truth. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for the third and final hour this Monday, March 25th, 2013. People ask me, why do you say the date all the time? Because that way we can, when people are looking or listening to a broadcast, they can define the time without having to search other places. And then
interject this real quick.
Yes.
Want the truth only if it fits their belief system.
Yeah, you know what? Does the truth make you uncomfortable? If it does, do you think that there might be an issue with your morality or your ethics or your integrity if the truth, not man's truth, but God's truth, makes you uncomfortable? I remember being in a situation where the truth one time made me feel very uncomfortable. And, you know, it was because I was involved in a situation where I knew I was not doing the right thing. The quote the little clip by Michael Savage has a number of different facets to it. But one thing I just want to mention this. I don't know whether you saw this over the weekend or not. The Department of Education website, the website for the children, featured the quote of the day. Guess what the quote of the day was and who it was by? Well, I'll tell you the latter first. It was by Mao Zedong, the communist Chinese leader. That's right, you heard me correctly. The Department of Education website for kids had a quote by Mao Zedong, the communist Chinese leader. If you can believe that, of course you can believe it. But it gets worse. It gets worse. Not only did they have it on there, but they misquoted him. Okay, the quote was this on the website: our attitude towards ourselves should be to be satiable in learning, and towards others to be tireless in teaching. Well, think about that, especially the first sentence, to be satiable in learning. He was actually misquoted. It should be to be insatiable in learning. But what in the world is a quote doing from Mao Zedong on the Department of Education's website? Well, hey, look, you've got ornaments hanging on the Christmas tree of Mao Zedong. You have Anita Dunn talking, saying he's one of her heroes. But here's the kicker, and you might not hear this on Fox News. Based on our investigation that buttress others, the quote of the day was put in there 6 years ago. So if it was 6 years ago, let me think. That'd be under the Bush administration, wouldn't it? The Department of Education was created by Jimmy Carter in 1979. If there was ever a reason for it to be totally dismantled and tossed into the trash heap of history, this is at least one of them. Unbelievable. Folks, we're taking your calls. 664. Sir, I'm sorry. I don't even know the phone number. 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. Anywhere in the world, we're taking your calls in the order in which they are received, and we don't screen calls.
And we could give out your personal home number. Would be good tonight, but
I got to tell you,
something pretty funny.
Yeah, that happened one time, and it was not a pleasant experience. So let's not do that.
Okay. We're going to go to the phones. Area code. I think we got Sheila. It's been a while, Sheila. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys?
Very well. What's on your mind tonight?
I just wanted to say that you were just talking about the gay agenda. Did you see what's going on in France over that? The people were in the streets by the hundreds of thousands over that very same issue.
Yes.
As far as the eye could see, I think that's all they're left with. That's pretty much, I think, what we're left with. They're not listening to the people. And the people, we're a nation of law here. People don't do this kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And if we're backed into a corner, and that's pretty much where we're at, it's going to happen. But I was really surprised to see, as far as the eye could see over there, over that very same agenda. They don't want it.
Right.
Which is a good thing.
I think one of the best photographs I've seen is on Press TV, where it's like it would be like the equivalent of the mall, the Washington Mall, where there's nothing but people everywhere. You're right. See, the majority of people with consciousness, or with not consciousness, of conscience. The majority of people of conscience do not agree with the homosexual agenda. By the way, gay is not the right word. It's homosexual, and it's a perversion. It's it's redefining traditional marriage. It's not same-sex marriage. It's perverse marriage is what they're after. Sheila, I love you for saying this, for bringing this out. France is demonstrating, and you're right. No one is listening. But if we march by the tens of thousands, and see, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't Christians doing this in this country, saying, no, we're not going to put up with this? Why aren't we doing this, Sheila? Tell me. Give me an answer.
People aren't paying attention to what's going on. In fact, I brought it up to my own kids here, and they got absolutely no problem with it. As long as they're not affected by it, they don't worry about it. And my kids didn't. They grew up. They never heard of it. You know what I mean? My youngest son here, he's 36 years old, and that was something that wasn't talked about. But today, I've got no problem with it. My daughter-in-law, she has an uncle that's a gay. I had a cousin was gay, and he's dead because of AIDS.
I have an uncle who was homosexual. He was stabbed 36 times, and he's dead too. And it was because of a homosexual encounter.
Yeah, and I want to add, it wasn't the police, but thanks to my dad's investigative work, he traveled to the ends of the country and got justice for that murder.
Well, that's
thank
great.
You for recognizing. But anyway, but you know what, Sheila? Isn't it funny that kids today, and I say kids, the generation that it's like no problem, it's okay, everything is normal. We should embrace and allow this.
I showed Matt. There was a big bold ad on, or not an ad, an article on Drudge Report, and it was over the banking issue over in Cyprus, and how the banking system's collapsing. And I yelled for him, and he came in here, and I told him to read it, and he was reading it. He just totally blew that off. He doesn't want to hear what's going on, and that's the majority of the people, until it affects them. And then when it starts affecting them, it's going to be too late. But I've already made up my mind that I got to do what I got to do. I can't base what I do on how they feel or how they're going to react. I've been doing some more preparing. I've got more food coming. If he gets mad, he gets glad. Too bad, I'm going to try to get out.
He'll be running to you when he's hungry.
I told him I'll be sitting up in here eating the beef stroganoff while they're out there eating rice and beans.
Exactly. But look, as Christians, though, they're their family, and of course, we take care, and I'm sure a lot of your planning involves.
It's them. Doug, let me tell you something. I sit here for 2 or 3 hours going over all the food, and I'm looking at freeze dry because to me it's safe.
Right.
And I'm picking out food that I know they like. They like.
Isn't that something? I love it.
I
love it.
Applesauce for I got a little 2-year-old granddaughter in here. Applesauce for her and macaroni and cheese. I mean, everything that I've bought has been for them.
You know something, I got to tell you. Real quick, I just got to tell you this. I went when I went shopping for my wife yesterday. Okay, and she does not let me go shopping very often because she holds the coupons and stuff. And she's a good shopper. Like she can, if something costs like $3.99, she'll get it for 99 cents. But anyway, it was funny because you talk about macaroni and cheese. I figured, you know what, I can buy a little extra. So I cut 3 different coupons out, and I didn't realize you could only use 1 coupon. But anyway, the bottom line is I bought it cost me 33 cents a box. So I felt like really proud of myself. I really did. I just want to share that with you. It really has nothing to do with anything except that little things like that you can do to prepare. But yeah, you're doing that for your children and looking out for them because that's what moms and dads. That's what we do. That's
my nature. I've always been one to prepare. I think a lot of it comes from being in the military. It's just part of my nature at this point. And I care about my kids and my grandkids especially. I want them to eat. And I've told them. I said, look, if you don't want to pay no mind to what's going on, I got to do what I got to do. My grandkids are going to eat regardless. You want to get mad, get glad, but I want to tell you something that happened last week, and it was a good thing. I can't get out to go to church anymore. This is last Sunday, and I went out in the kitchen to get me a cup of coffee, and I have to use my scooter. I've messed my knee up, and in fact, I got to go to the doctor's for that. But anyway, I went out and made me a cup of coffee. Was coming back in here with it, and I spilled it in my lap. So I thought, oh. So I went back, and I got another cup, and I started in here again, and I spilled that in my lap. And I'm like, okay. Now, in the meantime, I'm hearing Joe saying, I'm working on my anger. See, Joe, you can talk and say things, but we're never too old to learn. So I went back, and got another one. Finally, got in here with it. Not my clothes soaking wet, whatnot. I sat down. I had my mind made up. I was listening to my pastor. Well, don't you know, he started out saying, has anyone got any health problems? Are you having a really bad day financially? Whatever the problem is, he says, I just feel the need to pray over everyone that's got health problems and whatnot. I just totally made my day. And, God knows what's going on. He knows how we feel, and He will provide a way. And I needed to hear that. And I was really proud of myself because I didn't get angry. I got wet.
Well, Sheila, you know what? I believe that we're meant to hear things that we do hear at times, but in the meantime, what we can do is we can put you on hold, and then after the show, we'll get your address. We'll send you a sippy cup. Okay. I'm just kidding.
Well, my son has. No, go ahead.
No, it's this. The bottom line. Boy, I sound like Steve Quayle. The bottom line is it's how we isn't how we react to things as opposed to. You could have reacted much differently. You could have thrown the cup across the room. You could have just gone ballistic. But it's how we react to things, and that applies to the bigger things too. When things do come down, we have to be mentally and spiritually ready.
Well, here's the thing,
because go ahead.
Here's the thing. I've got MS. Okay, I got a half a body here don't work. I've got 380 discs in my neck. I've got osteoarthritis in my vertebrae. So, and I've had this MS for over 20 years. And I've learned how to get around it. Romans chapter 8 and the book of James are two of my favorite books. Why? Because it talks about trials. And when you live with things like this, even if it's financial problems, whatever's going on, God is going to take that situation and mold you into what He wants you to be. Yesterday, Jonathan Falwell said that if you haven't been healed, and I listen to healing music every night when I go to sleep. I think maybe tomorrow, but I don't dwell on it. And he said yesterday, he says, if you haven't been healed, God is getting you ready for heaven. And what he meant by that was we learn perseverance, patience. We learn to be happy and joyful in the midst of whatever's going on with us. So I learned a long time ago, not through my own doing, it's through God's doing, how to deal with this, I could be mad all the time. I could be have a pity party all the time, but I don't. That's not what God wants me to do. And I try to set an example for my children.
Exactly right.
That's the good thing about living with something like this. People say to me, Sheila, how can you laugh? Well, I got my sense of humor. That's what keeps me going here, But I tell them, look, it doesn't come from me. It comes from God. He gives me the strength I need, perseverance to get through it, and He shows me every day how to deal with it. And
exactly.
You take everything that's going on around us, and I've just thought that I'm going to try to pull myself out of the system as much as I can, prepare, pray, and in the meantime, call our reps and say whatever about this gay agenda and the whole thing. I mean, we are in a big mess, and it's like Joe keeps saying, our country's not the same anymore. And we have a hard time accepting that.
We do, especially us in our generation. We do.
Yes.
And Sheila, as always, you're right on target. And we pray for you, and you're an inspiration. You do what you can do with what you've got. You fight as much as we don't expect you to be marching in the Capitol, given your station, given your physical situation. But isn't that something where you're doing more by what you're doing, by making noise with the people in Washington than a lot of people are doing that are physically whole. So, man, God bless you.
Well, your listeners, everybody out there, we're all in this together. Whatever's going on with you, God's going to see you through it. We just need to pay attention. He speaks to us through people, through His Word. I know when to hear Him. I hear His voice, a lot of times. I have to.
Well,
He's the one that keeps me on my feet. Well, I love you guys, and keep doing what you're doing.
Well,
oh, and Joe, last week you said you had $20 in the bank. Well, let me tell you a little secret. Round off when you go to pay your bills. Round off to a zero. Round off to the next zero, and whatever change is left, just let it sit in the bank. We change banks all the time because I always do that, and my husband didn't know that I would do that, and we changed banks one time because he kept changing the name, and I had an extra $2,000 in there, and he said, "Well, where did we get this from?" So he went to the bank, and the teller's messing with it, and it kept coming back. I had $2,000 extra dollars in there, and I knew where it came from. It was rounding off to the next zero. I don't care if it was $2.05 or rounded off to the next zero. And right now I've got $5,000 in the bank. And want to get it out because they ain't getting it.
Well, there you go. And I got to tell you that's sound bookkeeping, even though it's kind of, I mean, to me that's sound bookkeeping. That's good practical advice for everyone listening. Really, seriously.
Just remember that. I mean, it takes a while, but it will mount up.
It will. It will. And I do that. I do that because sometimes I just don't feel like doing the
math,
addition or subtraction. Math. Thank you very much. Yes. Oh, Sheila, God bless you. Thank you. You're an inspiration to us all. We really appreciate you and love you, and you hang in there. Take care. Thank you so much for your call.
Love you guys.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Love you too. Thanks, Sheila.
And the listeners are our extended family, Joe. Really, they are. And some people, and I got a couple of emails this weekend saying, boy, I like your show, but can you, the callers, well, the callers are part of the show. And, that's a big part of the show.
Of course they are. And,
incredible.
Yeah. No, I've gotten emails like that too. But
I mean, not of any one caller, just like, they just want.
No, callers, the email I've received multiple times is they messed up the flow of the show or the cadence of the news. Yeah. But this is their show as much as it is ours, and we'll continue to give everyone a platform to speak.
That's right, because
as they want.
Try calling Hannity or Limbaugh or somebody, and it's different worlds. Go ahead, Joe.
All right, we're going to go to the next caller, area code 205. You're up next. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Very well.
Fantastic. Hey, Ken in Birmingham, the Friday night show was just absolutely fabulous there with V. Really appreciate that show.
Hey, I'll tell you, I listened to it numbers of times this weekend, yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to throw something at you here. I just accidentally heard this on a radio show here in Birmingham today as I was, just tuning across the dial, one of the talk shows. A guy called in and said, hey, have you heard about this thing, about this fantastic trade that they've got over there in Europe? And I did some research on it, some Google search or two, and found it. In fact, I think I emailed a copy of it to you. The thing reads, $900 million says the euro crashes in 2 weeks, put trade. There's two types of futures trading. You can have a call or a put. It says put trade rocks London options market. Well, I don't know whether there's any truth to that thing or not. I wonder, you guys being investigators, if you could check into that, see if that really is a real true trade out there.
Yes, it is. We can tell you right now, April 20th is the date. April 20th is the date. Now, the reporting, I don't know if it was the Silver Bear, one of the financial websites that reported incorrectly on it. They gave 2 dates, April 20th, April 25th. Yes, there is a put option on April 20th. It's true, yes.
Not knowing a whole lot about it, can you tell me, do we know, is it one single individual or a whole bunch of trades together that come to that amount, or what?
I took notes on it. There were not only conflicting reports, but conflicting amounts. 11 million, I believe.
Okay.
Wait a second. Hold on a second. That was whispering. Okay, no. No. That's.
I wasn't talking to you about that number.
Okay.
What is April 20th?
April 20th is the execution date on a put option for essentially the collapse of the euro or
some of the financial institutions that head up
the financial. Okay. I'm sorry, that's a more accurate statement.
So that's when they expire.
Well, right. However, now, Ken, to be fair on this, there's still some controversy surrounding that because the other side of that, the other side of that is what we're looking at, because it should balance out, right? When you've got a put option, there should be it should balance out, and there was some discussion about this, so it's cloudy. Yet I can verify. It's either 9 or 11.5, I believe was the number. in terms billion in terms of the put option. So, but we're still looking into that. But yes, I can tell you that somebody did place that. Whether it was one entity, it was a single trade or a single. I'm not even sure the verbiage, but
contract,
it was a single.
I guess you call it, don't you? Or not?
Contract. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, but who's behind it? I don't know.
Yeah.
And but yes, but.
And
so
I wonder
that's
this.
Where?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I wonder this, not knowing that much about how it works. Don't you have to buy that contract and pay for it regardless of the outcome? And I'm wondering, what does a contract like that cost?
That I don't know how much it would cost. I don't know if they've got the exposure for the entire 9 or 11 billion. I don't know.
Yeah, anyway. But that just kind of rocked me. I thought, wow, some of the stuff that V is talking about may actually literally be coming true here, maybe in a few weeks.
Well, again, it would appear that way. Now, we've heard this too about put options here. So yeah, it could very well be. I'm afraid to overstep my knowledge.
Just check into that and keep us informed in upcoming programs what you're able to find out about it. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Well, listen, guys, thanks so much. I sure appreciate talking to you here, and I'll get off here and let somebody else have it. So you guys take care, and be talking to you again soon.
Thanks, buddy. God bless you.
Bye-bye. Ken, you take it easy.
You too. Bye.
All right. Moving right along here, area code 703. We're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight? You were reading that.
Well.
You were reading that scripture earlier, and you came up with the word love, and it was pretty wild because I was thinking about the same thing, and while I was looking at a United Future World Currency coin, remember that thing? Mercy. Now that's a active revelation of our Father in Christ's love, right? That's the foundation, and of the whole revelation for us. That's why we're here. That earlier in the show when you first started out, you're asking why are we here? We're here to deliver that mercy, that revelation. And the United World, the United Future World Currency, I kind of find it ironic that the caller was just talking about naked puts or whatever. But the United World Currency, or the Unity and Diversity, is on that United Future World Currency that they, gave one of these coins to the Pope, and now we have the new Pope, who's you were talking about homosexuality, and he's done some things for civil unions for gay couples, and the whole message of the pantheism and the compromise of Christ and His mercy for the world, unity, plays in, to what we're going to suffer when we deliver that message of mercy that the world hates. The people who are going to suffer aren't going to be the Antichrist people, right? They're going to be people who are not accepting our Father in Christ's mercy, but they're accepting the mark of the beast. They're accepting the worship of it, and that all plays into what's going on with Israel and the market, and the way they're setting up for through debt. They've basically they have completely conquered labor. You don't have a rate of return, a portion to your labor through a tax in your country, because there's no borders to this crime wave that they've perpetrated on us all. And so when you look at the leaders, right, that they're going to Israel, and they're going to have the Passover. What are they going to do? Right, they're going to. You're dealing with a country, Israel, which is going to slaughter, they're talking about, doing the whole thing, slaughtering a lamb and whatnot. The Muslim guys are going to, they have a similar thing where they slaughter camels, in Mecca. And what is that really a revelation of? And it's a fear of God, and and the whole mercy that God gave, to the Jews, and what the Muslims think, that their mercy represents. But when you go back to what you were making that point about love, that the mercy, the act of mercy, the proof of mercy is our Father in Christ, who gave His only begotten Son and died and suffered for our sins, rather than some, old, fear-based thing. He loves us, and so when we return that love, we accept His gift, which is freely given, and that's what we're supposed to be out there delivering to people. So we can resist with full confidence any offers of the mark of the beast, any claims of homosexuality, being equal with the image of our Father in Christ and the earth as the bride. That's what I got from what you guys are talking about, and I see this whole setup that we've kind of been anticipating, to where not only will the market from some sort of black swan event, be it Syria, Iran, which is, they've been setting up, and while they've been setting up, they've been killing the global market, and setting up for this whole event. And then we've got a new pope who, he's got the St. Peter's ring or whatever, and Francis to Peter, and everything is coming together at once.
Well, I got to tell you, and people say, well, for example, you mentioned a couple of things here. This United Future World Currency, okay? I never heard about that until, I don't know, it was probably a year ago, maybe a little longer. It's called the world in a coin, I think is how it's being billed, and it's a vision, it's a hope, and it's a single currency, which is the premise for a united currency across the globe. But it's done in this really odd fashion. So I'm not even sure about the legitimacy of this, although. For example, a coin was taken to space, I think, once, and it was presented by Putin at one point. So it exists, but will it be the currency? I don't, or will it be the facilitation for a single currency? I don't know.
Well, they were talking about it at the G8.
Yeah, exactly, they were. Right, right, exactly. But unity and diversity is of course there. I think they're something like their unity and diversity is their slogan or something similar to that.
Well, yeah, that whole diversity thing really centers on Jerusalem and where Obama was just at. When you look at the scriptures talking about, the abomination, desolation, and the Antichrist and stuff. Well, you look on the Temple Mount, and you see the Prophet Muhammad's Dome of the Rock. There's a false prophet sitting right there on top of, the holiest of holies. And you've got the Catholic Church saying, that Islam worships the same God, even though on the Dome of the Rock it says God has no son.
It's crazy. And caller, you're right. And the duality of the two popes. Have we ever seen in the course of human history the two popes? No, I don't think so. So everything is backwards, and we are now entering into this matrix, to be certain. So you're 100% accurate. 100% accurate. I mean, for pointing out everything from the coinage to the papacy to Jerusalem, right on the money, my friend.
Anything else before we let you go?
Oh, well, I've called a couple times now, and I never mentioned the fact, but I've had 2 actual prophetic dreams. Maybe next time I'll call in and talk about them.
We'd be really interested to hear them. Maybe tomorrow night. I think we have open.
Yeah. If you can encapsulate them and share them with us, we'd really appreciate that. It would be kind of an interesting. We should, we should have a show, a specific. Yeah, I can't even talk.
Well, we can set that to do tomorrow.
For seriously, for dreams and visions,
feelings of
people
what
are
feeling
like this. Yeah, people are feeling. And I'll tell you something. There's something going on. So call.
Yeah. I think you might want to. I think you might want to do that. I think now is definitely the time for these kind of dreams and revelations to occur, and especially among people who might be in unusual positions to where those kind of dreams might actually have a little bit more weight than, say, somebody who's not. And I don't know. Everybody's equal, but I don't know how. I've heard how God works. How God works. The simple confound the wise and all that stuff. And I'm believe me, I'm a simple guy that shouldn't be anywhere near places that would be unusual.
Well, I'll tell you what. It sounds interesting. I think what we'll do is we can make that show for Wednesday. That would give us a chance to promote it.
Yeah.
To promote it. So thank you, caller. God bless you. Tune in give us a call back today.
Call in Wednesday, and we will take your call first since you were the one that spawned the idea.
All right, man.
Okay.
Very good.
Have a good one.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
All right. So what we'll do, Joe, I think if this is all right, the last 2 hours, we'll say we'll give the first hour to whatever we need to cover, and then the last 2 hours we'll specifically...
We should do people who have intense spiritual feelings right now. I want to know how people are feeling. But first, the dreams. If you've had, dreams or visions or anything,
we're not talking about
even to you from the spirit, and like the Bible says, we don't know. But as it is written, I have not seen, nor the ears heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them. It goes on to say, we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit of God, that we might know the things that are freely given to God, which things also we speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teacheth, but the Holy Ghost teacheth.
All right. And that's very applicable. And I think Wednesday would be a good day because I might not be able to talk. Well,
he's going to the dentist as an appointment from last week got rescheduled. So he will be in pain if he's here at all on Wednesday.
It's an oral surgeon, not a dentist, and it's going to be nasty. But all right, that's okay. Let's move on. So Wednesday would be a good day. Yeah, for that.
Okay, we're going to go to area code 480. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, this is Mary calling from Arizona.
Hi, Mary.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Good. I just felt led by the Spirit to call in and to pray tonight. I don't know. With this being Holy Week, I just have a heaviness around me, and I don't know if other people do or not. But I don't know, with the world events tied in with Holy Week, getting ready for Easter, it's just really, it's been very hard just the last couple of days in my own life. And I wonder if others are going through that too, as well.
Yeah, Mary, we have seen people talk about this, the intense feelings that something is wrong or they can't pinpoint what's wrong. Just the overall feeling that, I don't want to say doom, but that something's not right, that some enormous amount of change, some huge event is on the verge, whether, no matter what it is, spiritual or in the physical world.
It just really does. And I'm Catholic, and we have some, very somber, serious prayer services this week leading up to Good Friday. And then they remove everything off the altar, so it's just bare. It's just that absence of God when they took Jesus away, and what the apostles must have felt. And it's a way to really connect with that. And world events are just kind of echoing that feeling. It feels different this year than any other time in my life that I can remember. But I just wondered if I could just lead a short prayer for everybody, if since there are more than two of us here.
Absolutely.
Then, okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight, and we ask you to please calm the fears and the anxieties of your people. We love you, Lord. We praise you. We give you all the glory. And we just need you in our lives now more than ever. And especially this Holy Week leading up to your miraculous resurrection, we need to stay focused on the beauty of the resurrection. But we have to go through the cross first. And a lot of us are having a hard time with that right now. So, Father, I just ask you to please bring upon your people the peace that surpasses all understanding, which can only come from you. And calm our fears and help us to get through this time together. And in Jesus' name, I pray and let it be done in his name, and for God be all the glory. Amen.
Amen. And to God be all the glory for sure, because
absolutely,
without him, we would have no strength to even do anything.
As Christians, we're looking forward to the solemnness of his crucifixion, remembrance of his crucifixion, and of course the celebration of his overcoming death and resurrection. It's just a phenomenal time of year, or phenomenal time, and to have that heaviness, Mary. I'll tell you what, I understand where you're coming from, because I've talked to a lot of people here lately who've shared that same feeling that there's something spiritually wrong, and they can feel it. So you're, and this will lead into, yes, it is. And I'll tell you what, this kind of does lead into the theme for Wednesday, being dreams and visions. What's your spirit telling you? What experiences have you had? And I want to thank you very much for praying, because, and how many shows too? I mean, we're not blowing our own horn, but it's important. Prayer is an important aspect of what we're going through. We need to be close to God. So God bless you for that.
All right. Well, I'll let the next person come on, and God bless you guys, and keep up the good work. Okay,
thank you, Mary.
All right. God bless. Bye-bye.
All right.
Excellent.
Hagmann report, where prayer is encouraged and not boycotted.
And we want to say a special prayer for, I'll just say, our BR, also Larry, and we're going to pray for Beth, who says her sister-in-law's in critical condition, or critically ill sister-in-law. And anybody out there who has problems, whether it be with themselves or their families, whether illness or personal well-being, that all of your woes and sorrows and illnesses be healed in the name of God. And we have to keep that joy and that mindset of being positive and of overcoming when we pray and when we face these problems. We can't expect a positive answer, a positive solution, if we're only putting in negative thoughts into something. And that's a very important part of our lives, is to remain positive, and it helps our overall attitude, and it helps us serving part of us being a living example.
We have to be. That's right.
Yeah.
We have to be a living example, don't we? We can't afford to give up, and we have to just accept his will. And, we make plans. God has us. God laughs, and it's His will, not ours. That is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. One more call before the show is over. We are going to go to 304. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann Report.
Oh, good evening, gentlemen. We had another great show, and I just thank the Lord for you guys. I thank the Lord for all the people out there. And when we were praying in church on Sunday morning, and we were praying for our families, actually, we gathered around and held hands, and after we got done with our praise and worship, and it's just I know that there are people that can't go to church sometimes, and maybe this is sometimes the closest thing they can get to being in a body of believers, and praying is very important. And I tried to say a prayer for you guys and all the other guys that are out there that uplift me every day, and how important that is, just to have that community of people uplifting each other and helping each other down the road. And that's one of your guys' ministries.
Well, thank you. And I have to say thank you for your prayers. And, we have, my daughter is very active in her church, in the ministry. And the one thing that she does, and God bless her, she's my youngest child, and she actually leads a prayer for all of our listeners. And I just have to say that, it's, and of course I give her emails that I get for people in need, and she takes those with her, not the name. I mean, I truncate them or, abbreviate them so there's no personal information. And so she leads a prayer among many in her church. So isn't it kind of neat, though, to be in the fellowship, to walk in the fellowship with each other, knowing that in addition to all of our practical armaments, we have spiritual armaments as well.
Yeah, that's really important. It really is. In these days, especially, yes.
Yeah. And as guys, we're not afraid to talk about it, or we're not embarrassed to talk about it. It's part of our life. So it's great. Yeah. Wow.
Well, I'm glad that. Well, that's what makes you guys. Like earlier, you guys reminded me, and I got off the air with you guys, and I called my dad. I wanted to talk to him after your little round table talk there. Well, I haven't talked to my dad in a while, so I got off the phone and talked to him for a little while, and then I came back on. But that's another thing about your show here. It's kind of like, sitting down with the family at the dinner table having a discussion, and that's you don't get that on Hannity. You don't get that anyplace. That's special. That's special.
I think, we're the only radio show where it's like a box of chocolates, I think, in a sense, and we just never know what's going to happen next. So, well, God bless you, my friend, and thank you so much for your prayers.
Just let the Lord keep leading you by His Spirit, and He will. You guys, that's all we can do. You have a great
and that's all we ask for. God bless you. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Bye-bye.
Show, it's
wonderful calls. I can't believe the show's over already. And
yes, indeed.
They always go so fast, and each and every one of you play an important part in the show and in our lives, because our lives is the show now, and all the prayers, the emotional support we receive, the letters and emails, writings of support. We everything. Just a God bless you email to sending a book or letters, writing all the same. We can't express in words how much we appreciate it and how much it strengthens our spirits on a daily basis.
We read every letter, we read every card. Sometimes guys and women, guys usually. Sometimes you're a little hard to read, but we do read every single slip of paper. We had somebody send us actually a note on the back of a receipt and mailed it to us. I said, I have it. We keep everything, and it was so neat to get that.
Yeah. Somebody sent me a birthday card today too. I got it right here, and I know we're running out of time, but just
isn't that great? It's like a family, but you know what? I mean, look, we're just trying to help and trying to make a difference, and that's it, and do God's work. But just let's close by just asking this, or by saying this. Let me say this: that give your folks a call if your folks are still alive. Your dad, give your son, daughter a hug. Your wife an extra hug tonight. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Have a good night.